Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute. I appreciate so very, very much you being with me. Here we are. Let me see. This is December the 19th. Now, a heads up. The week after, and the week, part of the week of Christmas. I've forgotten which day Christmas is on this year. Anyway, the week after Christmas to New Year's, I will not be producing videos. Uh, going to take, obviously, the Christmas time off. And then the following week, I'm just taking off. December 31st is my birthday. Thank you very much. And so the last week of the year, I will not be producing videos. I'll probably be posting stuff on Facebook, this, that, or the other, but I will not be producing videos. So just keep that in mind. Pardon me. Keep that in mind. You don't have to send me emails saying, Don, are you okay? Are you okay? Now, I appreciate the concern, mind you. I really honestly do. But just keep in mind the week of, here you have Christmas, whatever day that falls on, and Christmas Eve. I will not be producing videos those 2 days. And then from Christmas until the New Year's, I will not be producing videos. All right. Back to Matthew chapter 25. And let's not forget what we were talking about yesterday. And that is the wicked servant who said in his heart, my master will not return for a long time. And he begins to mistreat the other servants, to beat them and mistreat them, etc., etc. And when the Son of Man comes, his part would be taken away, given to the faithful servants who were not acting unrighteously. Okay. Now, I posed the question yesterday. Let me repose it. When that servant said, my master isn't coming for a long time, do you suppose by any stretch of the imagination that he was saying, well, my master left and he won't be back for 2,000 years? He was using that term long time within the framework of his own life, within his own generation. And I think it remarkable that it's the wicked servant who said, my master delays his coming. And the reason I find that remarkable is because so many commentators say, oh, you know what? Christ has delayed his coming for 2,000 years. John MacArthur, in his book, The Glorious Return, says it's very obvious Christ has delayed his coming for 2,000 years. And because of that, MacArthur acknowledges, the skeptics use that against Christianity. And then MacArthur gives us an absolute total word salad trying to explain how 2,000 years isn't really a delay. It is a delay, but not really. Like I said, a total word salad. So somebody says, now, wait a minute, Preston. The man is not called wicked because he said, my master delays, but because he mistreated the servant. Seriously? Do you not think that the wise servant knew that the master had, quote, delayed his coming? I mean, he's aware when he left. He was, just exactly like the evil servant, aware of how long it had been since the master left. He knew he had delayed. Now, here's the thing. In Matthew chapter 25, we have the parable of the bridegroom and the 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish. And what do we find there? We find the bridegroom delaying his coming until midnight, which, by the way, in the marriage customs, wedding customs of the ancient Near East, that was a delay, but it was a delay to shall we say, prolong the festivities. It was not a delay because something had happened to prevent it from happening. A wedding ceremony, a wedding festival, was a drawn-out affair. It was a matter of incredible honor to be invited, a matter of incredible dishonor to not be prepared to go, and thus those 5 foolish virgins who did not take up enough oil, they have dishonored the bridegroom. They've dishonored themselves. They've dishonored the entire wedding. It's their responsibility. So when the bridegroom delayed his coming until midnight, they should have known when they were chosen that he was not going to come at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And yes, wedding ceremonies, festivals lasted all day long. But the coming of the bridegroom was the very last of the events. When the bridegroom came and he went to his father's house to get the bride and go into the marriage tent. Climactic part of the ceremony. Do you suppose that those wicked servants thought, well, the bridegroom delays, so yeah, we got plenty more? No. Then in the next parable, Matthew chapter 25, 14 and following, we have a master of a household who called his servants to him, and he divided talents to them and said, occupy until I come. But he delayed. And it says, after a long time. Isn't it ironic that Jesus used that very term that Matthew 24, 48 used? The wicked servant said, the master delays his coming. So in Matthew chapter 25, Jesus says, the absent master delayed his coming, or after a long time he returned, just like the servant had said, my master is not coming for a long time. Is the long time of Matthew chapter 25 the long time of Matthew 24, 48? If not, why not? It's still in the generation of the servants to whom the talents were given. It's still in the, which by the way, is exactly what Matthew 24, 48 and following is all about. It's a master who leaves, gives talents to his servants. Matthew 24, 48 and following is directly parallel, therefore, with Matthew chapter 25, 14 and following. In both of those situations, you have the master gone for a long time. But once again, the long time is still within the confines, the parameters of the lifetime, the generation of the servants to whom the gifts had been given. There is absolutely no justification for doing, by the way, as Kenneth Gentry does. He goes to that parable in Matthew chapter 25, 14 and following, and says, see, the master of the house delayed his return for a long time, and here we are 2,000 years later. So he didn't come in the generation of the servants to whom he gave the talents at all. You see, that violates the narrative of the parable. But let's look a little bit closer at this concept of saying the master delays his coming. It was not just the wicked. You see, we find this playing out in 2 Peter chapter 3. 2 Peter chapter 3, Peter said, knowing this first, that in the last days, he's already said, 1 Peter chapter 1, He's in the last days. As many commentators have pointed out, Peter's simply reminding his readers of what the Old Testament prophets said about this coming of scoffers in the last days. And Isaiah chapter 28 is one of those passages. I won't go into that this morning. But the point of fact is that Peter says, knowing this first, by way of remembrance, in other words, that in the last days scoffers shall come, saying, where's the promise of his coming? Now, these are scoffers. It doesn't mean that they're not Christians. Many commentators take note of the fact it's probably Christians growing disenchanted. And by the way, Clement of Rome, who some scholars believe was written prior to the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70, Clement of Rome urged his generation not to be discouraged with the passing of time and the non-occurrence of the parousia. Now, if in fact it can be proven that Clement of Rome was written prior to AD 70, it matches 2 Peter chapter 3 perfectly. Because 2 Peter chapter 3 is the exhortation to faithfulness in light of the fact that a generation had almost passed, but with the parenesis of saying, guess what? The Lord is not slack, from the Greek word braduno, meaning slow. The Lord is not slack concerning his promises, but is long-suffering toward us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. So Peter is exhorting his audience to faithfulness in light of the seeming delay of the parousia. Just like Clement of Rome exhorted his audience not to be discouraged since so much time had passed since the Lord had been there in his incarnation and gave the promise of his return. And again, these exhortations are directly parallel. Scoffers, those who were being tempted to give up the faith because of the delay of the parousia in the first century. Listen, Richard Bauckham, in his commentary on 1st, 2nd Peter and Jude, or 2nd Peter and Jude, says that late in the 2nd century, or in the 2nd century, I should say, as a result of the failed parousia, there was a crisis of belief. Why was there a crisis of belief if the first century Jews knew that, time statements don't mean anything. The Lord's coming may not be for 2,000 years. Why was there a crisis of faith? In the book, The Shepherd of Hermes, written mid-2nd century, it addresses that crisis of faith. And so the Shepherd of Hermes asked the question, why didn't the Lord come when he said he was going to? Oh, I know. It was because the church wasn't ready. No, the Lord said he was coming because of unfaithfulness, to judge the wicked. There is nowhere in the New Testament that teaches the Lord's parousia, his second coming, would be delayed due to the church's unrighteousness or unwatchfulness. No, he was going to come even though there would be some of his servants who were not watching, who were not prepared. So the whole idea, and there's a book written, When the Son of Man Did Not Come, which is written based upon the premise, the promise of the coming of the Lord was strictly conditional. No, it was not. The Lord never gave the condition that he was going to come, his second coming, only if the church was ready, only if the church was righteous enough. And finally, this morning, consider this. Hebrews, written circa in about the same time period as 2 Peter 3 or 2 Peter, after promising, and now to those who eagerly expect him and who look for him, he shall appear again a second time apart from sin for salvation. Hebrews 9:28. In chapter 10, the Hebrews writer said, and now, in a very, very little while, hoson, mikron is the Greek, how little time. The one who is coming, well, who's the only one that he has said was coming? It's Hebrews 9:28, the second coming. And now in a very, very little while, the one who is coming will come and will not delay. And yet we have commentators, we have former preterists saying, well, you see, you just don't understand. That citation from Habakkuk was not actually a statement of an imminent event, which is total nonsense, totally false, because they're saying, well, you know, Habakkuk was using that term to talk about events hundreds of years off. No, he was not. Let me reiterate, that's nonsense. And it doesn't even make good nonsense. Consider that Hebrews was written to people being persecuted for their faith. So Hebrews is giving an exhortation, a paranesis, to comfort them in their sufferings, to reassure them. And he does that by saying, in a very, very little while, the one who will come, and he will not delay. Why did he say he will not delay? Obviously, because just like at 2 Peter chapter 3, there were some people believing to say, why hasn't he come? They were beginning to doubt. But here is Hebrews, written late in that generation, saying he's not going to delay. And finally, in Revelation chapter 10, 6 and 7, in the days of the sounding of the seventh trumpet, the mystery of God, as foretold by the prophets, shall be finished, consummated, filled up, fulfilled. So the mystery of God would be fulfilled in the sounding of the seventh trumpet. And the writer says, in the days of the sounding of the seventh trumpet, there shall be no more delay. Now, some people try to make that to say that there'll be no more time. Prediction of the end of time. Sorry, that's wrong as well. The writer of Revelation was not giving some abstract discussion of how long will time end. He is saying, and the context is, here's the fulfillment of the trumpets, the bowls, the seals. But the seventh trumpet, there's no more delay in the fulfillment of God's scheme of redemption. And then in Revelation chapter 11, verse 15 and following, the seventh trumpet sounded. When did the seventh trumpet sound? At the time of the destruction of the city where the Lord was crucified. That was Babylon / Old Covenant Jerusalem. So in the days of the destruction of Jerusalem, Babylon, there would be no more delay in the fulfillment of all things, including resurrection, Revelation 11, 15 and following. No more delay. And yet John was told over and over and over again that the judgment on that great city Babylon, the hour of her judgment had come. Revelation 14, 8 and following. So from Matthew chapter 24, the wicked servant says, my master's not coming for a long time. My master is delaying. Hebrews, 2 Peter, Revelation, no more delay. Judgment of Babylon, second coming of Christ, AD 70. I don't see how that's escapable. I don't see how that can be refuted. And that means that Matthew chapter 24:48 has to be placed within the confines of the first century. Hey, I'm out of time. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you on the flip side.